put the thing out. Ben, welcome to UK Column. And you're going to take us into class of 2024, so matters politics.
Indeed, yes. Hello, everybody. We've had an influx of new MPs, new politicians coming into our political system. And the election obviously happened a few weeks ago, but it's just been niggling me. Who are all these people? Where have they come from? Right? And then particularly the ones who are in the Labour Party with their thumping majority, who are going to be dictating the direction of the country for the next 5 years. So I've got two sections. I'm going to start by looking at the MPs who've been elected into government, and then a bit later in the show, I'm going to look at some of the appointees who've been placed into positions without any kind of democratic process. So I'm going to start off by talking about the MPs. The first one that came across my desktop was this lady, Yuan Yang, who is the MP for Early and Woodley. She's the first Chinese-born citizen, British citizen, to be elected to Parliament. She's got a pretty thin majority of just 1.9%. What's her background? She's an author. She was reviewed recently in The Guardian. She received glowing praise for this book, The Private Revolution, which talks about 4 young citizens and how their lives were transformed by Deng Xiaoping's reforms in China in the 1980s. She's also a journalist. This is, I think, where it gets particularly interesting. She spent 8 years as the China correspondent at the FT, including working as the deputy bureau chief for the FT in Beijing, and then as the Europe-China correspondent based in London. And the Financial Times is owned by Nikkei Corporation. Nikkei is a partner of the World Economic Forum. So there's a direct link there between this young woman and the World Economic Forum, who, as we know, are keen to infiltrate and penetrate global governments. Who else have we got here? Laura Elizabeth Kyrke-Smith, who has been elected into the position of MP for Aylesbury, which has been held by 4 different members of the Rothschild family at various points through history. That's obviously nothing to do with her, but I thought that was an interesting tidbit. Aylesbury is where Waddesdon Manor is, which we've spoken about previously. So Laura Elizabeth Kyrke-Smith's background is in corporate communications. So she worked at Portland, working with big corporations to help them think about how they communicate to the market, to investors, how they define their policy, that kind of thing. And she was also the UK Executive Director for International Rescue Committee, which is the charity which is run by David Miliband, which we have spoken about previously here on the column as being a Trojan horse for the globalists. And it's heavily backed by George Soros. And in fact, the IRC gave Soros its Freedom Award back in 2013 for what David Miliband described as his tremendous commitment to the advancement of human rights, social justice, and democracy around the world. So some interesting connections there up in Aylesbury. We then have Katie White, OBE, for Leeds North West. She got a solid majority there. Well done. And her background, another fascinating one. There's so many links into global institutions here. So she was the executive director for advocacy and campaigns up until April this year at the WWF, which, as we know, is one of the big vehicles for pushing the climate agenda internationally, one of these big civil society organizations. And then she's also worked as campaigns director for Europe at One.org and the One campaign. And that is backed by, amongst other, I mean, the list is absolutely incredible, but the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bloomberg, Bono, the David Geffen Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Open Societies again, the Rockefeller Foundation. So all of these institutions are funding the One.org, which Katie White was working at in a very senior position not that long ago. Again, fascinating links here into the Labour Party. Who else? Tom Hayes in Bournemouth East replaced Tobias Ellwood. Good on him. But what's Mr. Hayes' background? He was a councillor for the St Clement's ward on Oxford City Council up until being appointed as MP. And he was responsible for the zero emission zone in Oxford, which, as we know from speaking about it here extensively over the past few years, is one of the most strict and punitive low emission zones in the UK. Who else have we got? Polly Billington for East Thanet, started life as a journalist, worked at the BBC as a reporter for the Today programme, was then political editor of Newsbeat, which is specifically targeted at young people. That's a Radio 1 programme, goes out on the radio every day. She was also Hackney councillor for de Beauvoir. And interestingly, she would have been my councillor at some point, because I used to live in de Beauvoir. So we have something of a connection there. And then more interestingly, she was the founder and chief executive of UK 100, which is the UK C40 cities climate vehicle funded by Sir Christopher Hone, the Children's Investment Fund. We spoke about them last week because Phil Glanville, who is the former mayor of Hackney, now works there in a communications role. They didn't cross over, but I'm almost certain that there would have been some involvement between Polly Billington getting Phil Glanville into that job after he had to step down because of his association with a known paedophile. Right? Some really concerning stuff going on at the top level of these organisations. She also helped run Sadiq Khan's leadership campaign to get him elected mayor. She was a SPAD to Ed Miliband. She was media director for his leadership campaign. The Miliband brothers are very, very heavily represented in the new Labour government. There are a lot of their people in there. And then finally, last but not least, David Pinto-Duschinsky, who is the Member of Parliament for Hendon, and he actually has the smallest majority in Parliament, 15 seats, 0.04%. Let's have a little listen to what he had to say out on the campaign trail.
I owe our country so much. My father is a Holocaust survivor. He came here as a child refugee. He had nothing, but was welcomed with open arms. Growing up, I had a serious speech impediment. Many people gave up on me, but dedicated NHS therapists worked with me for years to help me overcome my condition. And the NHS didn't just give me my voice, it saved my daughter's life when she was born extremely prematurely. These experiences have shaped my values. They are why I've spent years working hard for our community, campaigning for residents' rights and helping set up a food bank in West Hendon, fighting for leaseholders and tenants in Colindale and Mill Hill, volunteering with charities and working as a school governor in Hendon, and helping countless local people in Edgware and Burnton. That's why I'm running to be your local MP. This is a special place, diverse, vibrant, full of inspirational people, but we're being let down. The Conservatives have crashed the economy, sending our bills, rents and mortgages soaring. They've brought our NHS to its knees and broken our police and justice system. We deserve so much better. It's time for a change. As your MP, I will deliver that. Labour will provide real help with bills and get the economy growing again. We'll invest in one of the largest expansions of training and staff capacity in NHS history, and we'll make our streets safer with more neighbourhood police and PCSOs to crack down on crime. We'll fix the mess the Conservatives have created.
All very stirring stuff. The NHS, setting up food banks, fighting for residents' rights, and obviously solving the economic crisis, which he claims is caused by the Conservative Party. But unfortunately for Mr. Pinto-Duschinsky, I think he probably has to hold some responsibility for that as well, because before joining Parliament, he was, my slides disappeared. He was a partner for EY and McKinsey and Company, and was a strategic partner of the World Economic Forum, helping to implement the Great Reset. So I think that he probably has to take some accountability for the problems in the country.
Ben, thank you very much for that. My fault with the slide. And I'll just say, as we're getting deeper into who is really driving politics, we're really starting to understand who is in control of this highly destructive agenda for